Jiwoo stared at her sensor screen and felt her blood turn cold. Her crystalline antennae trembled against her lavender skin as ancient fear coursed through her body. The signature on her display should not exist. Could not exist. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. They were just stories told to scare children into behaving, but the readings did not lie. She sat frozen in her chair aboard the scout vessel Whisper of Stars, unable to move or speak. Her 3 hearts hammered in her chest. The ship moving across her sensors had the exact signature from the forbidden database. Angular hull design, impossible power output, radiation patterns that matched nothing else in known space. It was a human warship. Captain Hyun noticed her silence first. He was an older Velnari male with deep purple skin and scars from 3 decades of service. His voice was calm when he spoke. Jiwoo report she could not answer. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. The genetic memory of her species was screaming inside her skull. Her grandmother had faced humans in battle 270 years ago. That grandmother had died in the war. But before dying, her memories had been passed down through Velnari biology. Jiwoo could feel that ancient terror as if it were her own. Hyun left his command chair and walked to her station. He looked at her screen and went very still. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Dae, the pilot, glanced back from his controls. He was younger than Jiwoo, with smooth green skin and an attitude that nothing scared him. What is it? Another pirate ship? No, Hyun said quietly. It is something much worse. Mirai, the navigator, pulled up her own display. She studied ancient history as a hobby and knew the old records better than anyone. Her eyes went wide. That cannot be real. Humans disappeared 300 years ago. The Conquered drove them into deep space. They should be dead by now. Apparently they are not, Hyun said. His voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly. Jiwoo, can you get a better reading? Jiwoo forced herself to work. Her fingers moved across her controls even though every instinct told her to run. The ship was massive. Perhaps twice the size of their scout vessel. Its hull showed damage, scorch marks, breaches that had been poorly repaired. It was moving slowly as if injured, but its weapons were online. All of them, Captain, Jiwoo whispered. What do we do? Hyun stood silent for several seconds. Every option was terrible. If they engaged the human ship, they would die. His grandmother had told him stories about human combat tactics. Humans did not stop fighting until they won or died. There was no middle ground with them. If they fled and alerted the Conquered, they would abandon their patrol mission. Other ships might encounter the humans unprepared. More people would die. If they tried to communicate, the humans might simply destroy them. No one knew if humans could be reasoned with. The few peace attempts during the war had ended in blood. We hide, Hyun decided. Dae, take us into the magnetic shadow of that gas giant. Minimum power. I want to observe this ship and see what it wants. Dae brought the Whisper of Stars behind the swirling purple atmosphere of the nearby planet. The gas giant's powerful magnetic field would hide their sensor signature. Unless the humans were actively looking for them, they would not be detected. They watched the human ship pass. It moved steadily toward the inhabited areas of the sector. Toward civilian stations and trade routes. Where is it going? Mirai asked. Jiwoo checked the trajectory. Marrow Colony. It will reach the station in approximately 4 hours at current speed. Marrow Colony housed 40,000 civilians, families, children, people who had never seen combat and would not know how to fight. If the human ship attacked them, it would be a massacre. Dae turned in his seat. Captain, we have to warn them. We have to. He stopped talking. 3 new signatures appeared on the sensors. Everyone recognized the configuration immediately. Pirate vessels. Kreth Syndicate by the look of them. The worst kind of raiders. They had been terrorizing this sector for months, hitting supply convoys and stealing cargo. The Conquered had been hunting them without success. Now the pirates were moving to intercept the human ship. They think it is an easy target, Mirai breathed. They see the damage and think the ship is helpless. Hyun felt something cold settle in his stomach. They have no idea what they are about to face. The lead pirate ship opened a communication channel to the humans. The Kreeth captain's voice crackled over the speakers. His species spoke in clicking sounds that the computer translated to Conquered Standard. Unknown vessel, you are carrying valuable salvage. Surrender your ship and we will let your crew live. Silence from the human ship. The pirate fired a warning shot. A plasma bolt that streaked past the human vessel's bow. I said surrender. This is your final warning. Still no response from the humans. The pirate ships moved into boarding positions. Their grappling systems powered up. The lead ship, commanded by a Kreth named Taman, extended its docking clamps. Then the human ship's weapons came alive. What happened next lasted less than 1 minute. But Jiwoo knew she would remember every second for the rest of her life. The first weapon to fire was something called a railgun. Jiwoo had read about them in old war records but had never seen one used. The human ship launched a simple tungsten rod at impossible speed. The projectile punched through the first pirate ship like it was made of paper. The rod went in one side and out the other, the kinetic energy tearing the vessel in half. Atmosphere vented in bright clouds. Bodies tumbled into space. The second pirate ship tried to run. A missile caught it at the engines. The explosion could be seen across 3 light minutes of space. Nothing survived. The third pirate ship, Taman's command vessel, managed to bring its shields online. Military-grade shields bought from corrupt Concord officials. The shields held against the first kinetic strike. They held against the second strike. The third strike came from a particle beam weapon. The beam did not bother with the shields. It simply burned through them as if they did not exist. The pirate ship went dark, drifting and powerless. Then the human ship did something unexpected. It changed course. It moved directly toward the disabled pirate vessel. What are they doing? Dae asked Hyun-nu. His grandmother's memories told him. They are taking prisoners. Humans interrogate survivors to learn about enemy forces and territory. They watched as the human ship extended a docking collar and attached to the pirate vessel. 10 minutes passed. The human ship detached and resumed its course toward Morrow Colony. Sensors showed 4 life signs remaining on the pirate ship, 4 survivors from a crew of 37. Captain, Jiwoo said. What are your orders? Hyun made a decision that would change everything. Dae, follow that ship. Maximum safe distance. We need to know what the humans want at Morrow Colony. And if they detect us? Dae asked. Then we find out if humans have learned mercy in 300 years, Hyun said. Or if they are still the monsters from the old stories. The whisper of stars followed the human vessel through empty space. Nobody spoke. They were following a legend, a nightmare, something that should not exist. Jiwoo tried to calm her racing hearts. She told herself the humans might be different now. 3 centuries was a long time. Maybe they had changed. Maybe they wanted peace. Then her console beeped with a new alert. She checked the readings and felt sick. The human ship had sent a data burst into deep space. Mirai managed to decrypt part of the message. The words appeared on the main display in old human language, translated by their computer. Survivors confirmed. Continue to Morrow Waypoint. 27 days fuel remaining. Colony status unknown. If anyone receives this, Earth remembers. We are coming home. Coming home. The words hung in the air like a threat. The human ship approached Morrow Colony. The station's automated defenses detected the unknown vessel and activated. Warning sirens echoed across all communication channels. Targeting lasers painted the human ship's hull. The humans did not power up their weapons. Instead, they broadcast a message on every frequency. The message was in 15 different languages, including several that had not been spoken in the Concord for 100 years. Requesting humanitarian assistance. Civilian vessel. Minimal armament. Children aboard. Children. There were children on that warship. Jiwoo looked at Captain Hyun. They said children, Captain. They have families on that ship. Before Hyun could respond, Morrow Station's defense grid opened fire. Plasma bolts hammered into the human vessel. Shields failed. Hull plating burned and peeled away. Atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. The human ship did not return fire. It moved behind the station's docking arm, using the structure as cover. They were not attacking. They were trying to survive. Hyun grabbed the communication controls. Morrow Control, this is Captain Hyun of the scout vessel Whisper of Stars. Cease fire immediately. That vessel is attempting to surrender. The defense coordinator's panicked voice came back. Captain, that is a human warship. Our standing orders are 300 years old, Hyun interrupted. Cease fire now or I will report you for war crimes against civilians. The defense grid went silent. In that sudden quiet, a new voice came over the communication channel. It was human, female, young, and absolutely exhausted. This is colony ship homebound. Captain requesting emergency dock. We have casualties. We have children, please, we cannot run anymore. Please help us. The silence after the human's plea was heavy. Everyone on the bridge of the Whisper of Stars exchanged glances. Jiwoo felt her fear warring with something else. Something that felt like guilt. Captain Hyun opened a channel to Morrow Station's command center. Morrow Control, patch me through to your station administrator. We need to talk, now. The response came quickly. Stand by, Captain. While they waited, Day stared at the damaged human ship on his display. They really have children on that thing? How is that possible? Mirai pulled up what little information existed about human biology in the Concord database. Most of it was from war records, clinical and cold. Humans reproduce similarly to our species. They care for their young for many years. If they have children on that ship, it means they have been living on it. For a long time. A new voice came over the speakers. Female. Calm despite the situation. This is Administrator Yuna of Morrow Colony. Captain Hyun, please explain why you ordered my defense grid to stand down. Yuna was Dalkari. Her species had joined the Concord only recently, and were known for practical thinking over emotional decisions. Good. They would need that practicality now. Hyun chose his words carefully. Administrator, I have been observing that ship. It destroyed 3 pirate vessels in less than 60 seconds. If it wanted to attack your station, you would already be dead. They are asking for help. They are human, Yuna replied flatly. Do you understand what that means? If we allow them to dock, the Concord will quarantine this entire system. They might destroy my station just to contain the threat. Then we are killing children to follow rules made 300 years ago, Hyun said. Another voice interrupted. The human captain from before. Please let me explain. My name is Nari. I command the colony ship Homebound. We are not military. We are refugees. We have been running for 8 months. We have nowhere else to go. Yuna's tone was sharp. Refugees from what? Why should I believe you? There was a pause. When Nari spoke again, her voice was thick with exhaustion and pain. We are refugees from the deep dark. From the place your Concord forced us to 3 centuries ago. We built colonies out there. 13 settlements on 11 worlds. We survived. We adapted. We raised families. She stopped, drew a breath, continued. Then something found us. 20 years ago. We call it the silence because that is what it leaves behind. It does not talk. It does not negotiate. It just consumes technology, resources, people, everything. Jiwoo felt her skin prickle. What kind of thing? Unknown origin, Nari said. Unknown biology, if it even has biology. It travels in ships that look grown instead of built. Its weapons bypass our shields. Bypass yours too, probably. It has been hunting us for 2 decades. We lost 4 colonies, 14 ships, over 60,000 people. The numbers hung in the air. 60,000 dead. The Homebound is carrying 847 people. Nari continued. We are the last survivors of Outpost Maris. 6 colony ships escaped when the silence found us. 3 were destroyed during the run. 2 more were lost to pirate attacks. We are all that remains. Mirai worked her console, checking the human ship's configuration. Captain Hyun, she is telling the truth. That ship is not a warship. The weapons are retrofitted, salvaged from different sources. The hull design is for long-term habitation, not combat. Day shook his head. But they destroyed 3 pirate ships in seconds. How is that not military? Because we had to learn, Nari answered. She must have heard him over the open channel. When you spend 20 years being hunted, you learn to fight or you die. We chose to fight. We are not proud of what we have become. But we did what we had to do to protect our families. Administrator Yuna cut in. Even if I believe you, even if I want to help, the moment you dock, this becomes an incident. The Concord will send warships. They will arrest everyone involved. Your people will be imprisoned or worse. My station will be shut down. I know, Nari said quietly. I know what we are asking. But we are out of fuel, out of food, out of options. Our engines are failing. If you turn us away, we will drift here until life support fails. 62 of our people are children under the age of 10. If you refuse us, you are executing them. Jiwoo closed her eyes. She tried to imagine what it must be like. Running for 8 months. Watching your home destroyed. Watching other ships fall behind and die. Carrying children through that nightmare and somehow keeping them alive. She opened her eyes and spoke before she could stop herself. Administrator Yuna, I recommend we allow them to dock. Everyone looked at her in surprise. Even Captain Hyun raised his eyebrows. Ji-woo, Hyun said carefully. You are aware of the consequences? Yes, Captain. But I am also aware that my species has genetic memory. My grandmother fought humans in the war. I can feel her fear right now. It is real and powerful, but I can also feel something else. Shame. Because the Concord drove them into the dark without mercy. We created this situation. Maybe it is time we took responsibility for it. There was a long pause. Then Hyun nodded slowly. Administrator Yuna, I support my officer's recommendation. Allow them to dock. I will take full responsibility in my report to Concord Command. Yuna made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. You are asking me to risk 40,000 lives on faith. Faith that humans are not the monsters from our history books. I am asking you to save 800 lives because it is the right thing to do. Hyun replied. Before Yuna could answer, Ji-woo's console erupted with alerts. Her hands flew across the controls, checking and rechecking the readings. No, this could not be happening. Captain, she said, her voice shaking, I am detecting multiple contacts. Unknown configuration, coming from the same direction as the homebound. Distance is 300 million kilometers and closing fast. Nari's voice came over the speakers, and for the first time there was pure terror in it. You are detecting them already? It took them 2 months to find us after our last jump. They are getting faster at tracking us. What are they? Hyun demanded. The silence, Nari said. They must have followed our trail. Captain, Administrator, you need to evacuate now. Everyone needs to run. If they reach this station before you can warn the Concord, everyone will die. You have maybe 4 hours. Yuna was silent for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like forever. Then she spoke and her voice was steady. Homebound, you are cleared for emergency docking. Bay 7. But Captain Nari, if you are lying about those children, if this is some kind of trick, I will space every one of you myself. Understood, Nari said. And thank you. I know what this costs you. The human ship limped toward Morrow Station's docking bay. Ji-woo watched it approach. This vessel full of refugees and children and people who had been running for so long they forgot what safety felt like. Day was checking his weapons systems. Captain, if these silence things are as dangerous as she says, what are we supposed to do? We are a scout ship. We have weapons designed for disabling pirates not fighting an extinction-level threat. Hyun stared at the approaching contacts on the long-range sensors. I do not know. But we are about to find out if humans are the only ones who can be dangerous when they need to be. The homebound reached the station and began its docking procedures. Through the viewports, they could see the ship up close for the first time. It was ugly. Patchwork repairs covered the hull. Different types of metal welded together. Burns and scars from weapons fire. This ship had been through hell and somehow survived. Mireille pulled up a tactical display. The unknown contacts are accelerating. They will reach us in 3 hours and 42 minutes. 58 minutes faster than predicted, Ji-woo noted. They are moving faster than they should be able to. The docking clamps engaged. The airlock cycled. Across the communication channels, they could hear Morrow Station personnel preparing to receive the humans. Medical teams. Security forces. Engineers to assess the homebound's damage. Then the first humans stepped off their ship and into Morrow Station. The security feed showed them clearly. They looked mostly like the images in the historical database. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. But something was different. These humans were thin, too thin. Their clothing was mismatched and patched. Many had visible scars. They moved like soldiers, always watching, always alert. The children were worse. They did not run or play or make noise. They stayed close to the adults, moving in tight groups. Their eyes were old, too old for their young faces. One human child, a girl who could not have been more than 6 years old, flinched when a Morrow Station worker made a sudden movement. She reached for a knife at her belt before an adult stopped her. A 6-year-old child had been trained to reach for a weapon. What kind of life produced that behavior? Captain Nari was the last to disembark. She was younger than her voice suggested. Maybe 30 by human standards. She wore armor that looked handmade, brutal, and efficient. A sidearm hung at her hip. When she saw the Morrow Station security chief, she did not salute or bow. She just nodded once, warrior to warrior. We have 3 hours and 40 minutes, Nari said without preamble. Maybe less. The silence does not stop. It does not slow. It finds and it consumes. You need to start evacuating now. The security chief, a Quillen named Bowman, looked at Administrator Yuna for guidance. Yuna's face was unreadable. "How many ships does your station have?" Nari asked. Morrow Station's emergency command center quickly filled with people. Station personnel mixed with homebound crew, conquered species standing next to humans for the first time in 3 centuries. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Captain Nari moved to the central holographic display and brought up data files from the homebound's computers. The images that appeared made everyone in the room go silent. The ships were wrong. That was the only way Jiwoo could describe them. They looked organic but also mechanical. Smooth curves mixed with sharp angles. The hulls seemed to shift and move even in still images, as if the material itself was alive. "This is the silence," Nari said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She had given this briefing before. "We do not know where they came from. We do not know what they want beyond consumption. We do not know if they are biological, mechanical, or something else entirely." She pulled up a tactical diagram. They travel in groups. Collector vessels and harvester vessels. Collectors attack and disable targets. Harvesters process everything afterward. Ships, stations, bodies. All of it gets broken down into raw material. Bowman, the security chief, leaned forward. "What about their weapons? How do they fight?" "They adapt," Nari said. "That is what makes them so dangerous. The first time we fought them, our shields worked. The second time, they had already learned how to bypass them. They study their enemies during combat and adjust in real time. Whatever worked last battle will not work the next battle." Administrator Yuna crossed her arms. "Then how have you survived for 20 years? By running. By sacrificing the slow to save the fast. By never fighting the same way twice." Nari's jaw tightened. "We have learned to be unpredictable, to use weapons and tactics they have not seen before. But it costs us. Every battle costs us." She pulled up another image. This one showed a human colony under attack. The footage was grainy and shaky, taken from an escape pod. The silence ship surrounded a habitat dome like insects around prey. Where their weapons touched the dome, the material simply dissolved. Not broken or burned, just ceased to exist. People were running in the footage. Human families trying to reach ships. The silence did not shoot them directly. It did not need to. It just kept dissolving the station until there was nowhere left to run. Jiwoo had to look away. The footage continued for 17 minutes. By the end, there was nothing left but debris and silence. "Turning harbor," Nari said quietly. "Population 4,000. 300 survivors. That was 6 years ago." Junho, Morrow Station's chief engineer, spoke up. He was a Tarn with 6 arms and a brilliant mind for improvisation. "If they adapt so quickly, how can we possibly fight them? We have 3 hours to prepare. They will learn everything we do and counter it." "Not if we only fight once," Captain Hyun said. Everyone turned to look at him. "We do not need to defeat them. We only need to hurt them badly enough that they retreat. One attack, one surprise. Then we evacuate." Nari studied him with new respect. "You think like a human. That might actually work. What do you have in mind?" What followed was an hour of desperate planning. Humans and conquered species working together, sharing knowledge, combining technologies. Old enemies united by a new threat. The plan was insane. Everyone agreed on that. But insane was better than certain death. Junho would work with the homebound's chief engineer, a human named Tai Yang, to weaponize the station's mining equipment. Morrow Colony processed asteroids for valuable minerals. The tools designed to break apart rocks could be repurposed to break apart ships. The civilian vessels would form a harassment fleet. Not enough firepower to destroy the silence, but enough to keep them off balance, to make them focus on multiple targets at once. The homebound would be bait. It would broadcast its position and draw the silence away from the station. The enemy had been hunting that ship for months. They would not be able to resist an easy target, and when the silence committed to the attack, Morrow Station would spring the trap. Nari looked around the room. "Everyone understand the plan? Good, because we have one chance at this. If we fail, we all die. No rescue, no second attempt. One shot, people disperse to their tasks." Jiwoo found herself assigned to work with a human technician named Minho. He was young, maybe 25, with scars on his hands and a missing finger on his left hand. His eyes were old like the children's eyes, too much experience for his age. They worked on recalibrating the station's sensors to better detect silence vessels. The work required close coordination. Jiwoo tried not to think about the fact that she was working alongside a human, a species that terrified her on an instinctive level. "You are scared of me," Minho said after a while. It was not a question. Jiwoo's hands shook slightly as she adjusted a sensor array. "Yes, my species has genetic memory. I can feel my grandmother's fear. She fought humans in the Battle of Cygnus Prime. She died there." "I am sorry," Minho said. He sounded like he meant it. "We are scary. I know that. We know what we have become, what we had to become to survive." He held up his hand with the missing fingers. "Lost these when I was 16. Pirate raid. Learned to shoot with my other hand. 16. He had been a child. Are you scared of us?" Jiwoo asked. "Of what you have become?" Minho was quiet for a moment. "Every day. But I am more scared of the silence. And I am more scared of my little sister dying because I was too afraid to fight. Fear is useful. It keeps you alert. But you cannot let it control you." They worked in silence for a while. Then Jiwoo asked, "Do you think we can actually win this?" "No," Minho said honestly. "But I think we can survive it. And sometimes survival is the same as winning." Across the station, others were preparing. Taeyang and Junho had discovered they worked well together despite coming from different worlds and different technologies. Taeyang's human pragmatism combined with Junho's creative problem-solving produced solutions neither could have found alone. They rigged the mining charges to the station's cargo launchers. Each charge was designed to fragment asteroids several kilometers across. At close range against ships, they would be devastating. Probably is not very reassuring, Junho muttered as he tested the firing systems. "Probably is the best we have ever had," Taeyang replied. He was older than most of the human crew, with gray in his hair and burn scars covering half his face. "You learn to work with probably when you have nothing else." Day and several other pilots were preparing the civilian ships for combat. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, personal transports. None of them were designed to fight, but they could move fast and carry weapons. It would have to be enough. One pilot, a young Velnari named Hana, looked at the modified mining laser mounted to her cargo hauler. "This is insane. We are going to die." "Maybe," Day agreed. "But if we do nothing, we definitely die. At least this way we have a chance." Time passed too quickly. 3 hours became 2. 2 became 1. Captain Hyun stood in the command center with Administrator Yuna and Captain Nari, watching the long-range sensors. The silent ships were getting closer. 5 vessels, 4 collectors and 1 harvester. "That is more than they usually send," Nari said quietly. "They are taking us seriously." "They brought a harvester." "What does a harvester do?" Yuna asked. "It processes everything after the battle. Usually it arrives after the collectors finish. The fact that it is here now means they are not just hunting the homebound anymore. They are here to consume everything. Your station. Every ship. Every person." Yuna's face went pale. "They want to erase us completely." "Yes," Nari said. "That is what they do." The silent ships entered the system. On the sensors, they looked like dark holes in space. Wrong shapes that hurt to look at too long. "All ships, this is Captain Hyun," he broadcast on the command channel. "Execute Operation Desperate Measure. May the stars guide us home." The homebound detached from Morrow Station and moved into open space. It broadcast its position on all frequencies. "Come and get us," it seemed to say. "We are right here." The silence responded immediately. 3 of the 4 collector vessels broke formation and accelerated toward the human ship. They moved in ways that should not be possible. Curves that violated physics. Instant direction changes. Jiwoo watched them approach on her sensors and felt her blood freeze again. These things were not natural. "They should not exist. Stand by," Captain Hyun ordered. "Wait for them to commit. Wait for the trap." The collectors closed on the homebound. The human ship looked helpless, drifting and damaged. Perfect bait. The collectors were 200 kilometers away. 150. "Now," Hyun commanded. Morrow Station's tractor beams fired at maximum power. They could not hold the silent ships. The collectors were too massive, too powerful, but they could slow them down for a few precious seconds. In those seconds, the cargo launchers opened up. Fusion charges shot across the distance and slammed into the nearest collector vessel. The explosions were bright enough to light up the entire system. When the light faded, the first collector was in pieces. Fragments tumbling through space, leaking some kind of fluid that might have been fuel or might have been blood. The second collector adapted. Its hull shifted and changed, forming armor or shielding. The next fusion charge hit this new surface and detonated, but the ship survived. Damaged but functional, the third collector did something none of them expected. It returned fire. Space around Morrow Station turned into chaos. Ships that were never meant to fight threw themselves against an enemy that should not be possible to defeat. Hana, the young Velnari pilot, flew her cargo hauler in close to one of the collector vessels. Her hands shook on the controls, but she kept her course steady. The mining laser mounted to her ship was designed to cut through rock, not military hulls. But the silent ships were not normal military hulls. She fired. The laser burned across the collector's surface, scoring a deep line through the strange material. The ship reacted immediately, its hull rippling and changing. Armor formed where the laser had hit, but Hana was already gone, diving away at maximum thrust. Another civilian ship, a mining vessel piloted by a Quillan named Yunji, came in from a different angle. She fired explosive charges normally used to break up asteroid cores. The charges hit the collector where Hana's laser had weakened it. The explosion tore a chunk from the collector's hull. Something like ichor sprayed into space. The ship listed to one side, damaged but not destroyed. "Hit and run," Captain Nari's voice commanded over the open channel. "Do not stay close. Do not let them learn your patterns. Keep moving." The whisper of stars danced through the battle, firing missiles at weak points in the collector ships. Day flew like a madman, performing maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart. Captain Hyun stood behind him, hands gripping the back of the pilot's seat, trusting his crew. Jiwoo worked her sensors, tracking all 5 silence vessels and trying to predict their movements. "Captain, the second collector is adapting its shields. Our missiles are becoming less effective. Switch targets," Hyun ordered. "Attack the third collector. Keep them guessing." But the silence was learning. Every attack gave them more information. Every weapon revealed its weaknesses. The collectors began moving in coordinated patterns, covering each other's damaged sections. Their return fire became more accurate. A cargo hauler took a direct hit from one of those terrible erasing beams. The ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist in a perfect spherical section. The two halves tumbled away, atmosphere venting, the pilot dead before they could even scream. More alarms across the communication channels. More deaths. The civilian ships were not built for this. Then something worse happened. While everyone focused on the collectors, the Harvester began its approach to Morrow Station. It had not fired a single weapon. It did not need weapons. Its purpose was not destruction. It was consumption. The Harvester extended what looked like tentacles, kilometers long and impossibly thin. Where they touched the station's hull, the metal did not break or melt. It dissolved, converted into raw material and pulled into the Harvester's mass. "It is eating the station," Administrator Yuna whispered. Her calm had finally shattered. She watched her home, the place she had spent 15 years building, being consumed by something that should not exist. The evacuation shuttles launched in waves, civilian ships fleeing in every direction. The Harvester ignored them completely. It wanted the station itself. The technology, the resources, the knowledge stored in the computers. The people were irrelevant. Junho watched from the engineering deck as sections of the station disappeared. His work, his designs, his home, gone, erased. He felt helpless rage building in his chest. Beside him, Taeyang put a scarred hand on his shoulder. "I know what you are feeling. I watched my colony die the same way. We could not stop it either. Then how do we fight it?" Junho demanded. Taeyang was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at the homebound, still drifting in space, damaged and barely functional. "We do what humans always do when we have no other choice. We improvise. We sacrifice. We take the enemy with us." On the bridge of the homebound, Captain Nari stared at the Harvester through the viewports. She had been running from the silence for 8 months, watching it destroy everything she loved, everyone she knew. She was so tired of running. She opened a channel to Morrow Station. "Captain Hyun, Administrator Yuna, I have an idea." "You will not like it." "Tell us," Hyun said. "Our fusion core is already unstable. We have been running it at 140% capacity for 3 months. It should have melted down already. If we overload it completely and ram the homebound into the Harvester, the explosion might be enough to destroy it." Silence on the channel. Everyone understood what she was saying. "That would require someone to pilot the ship," Hyun said carefully. "A suicide run." "Yes," Nari agreed. Her voice was steady. It would. I will do it. My crew will evacuate to the station. I will fly the homebound alone. No, came a chorus of voices. Not from the station. From the homebound itself. Nari's crew listening on the internal channels. Minho, the young technician with missing fingers, spoke for all of them. You led us this far, Captain. You do not get to die alone. We are humans. This is what we do. We fight until there is nothing left to fight with. Other voices joined in. Taiyang, engineers, gunners, navigation crew. 23 people volunteering to die. Jiwoo felt tears running down her face. She had been terrified of humans. They were monsters in her genetic memory. But these people were not monsters. They were heroes. Broken heroes, scarred heroes, but heroes nonetheless. Administrator Yuna's voice was thick with emotion. Captain Nari, I will not order you to do this. But if you choose it, if your crew chooses it, Morrow Station will remember what you did here. The conquered will know. History will know. History does not matter, Nari said quietly. Only the future matters. Only the children who survive us. That is worth dying for. The homebound's crew evacuated the civilians, the 824 refugees who had survived 8 months of hell, the 62 children who had never known a safe home. They were loaded onto shuttles and sent to Morrow Station. One little girl, the same one who had reached for a knife earlier, stopped at the airlock. She looked back at Captain Nari. Will you come with us? Nari knelt down to the girl's level. Not this time, little one. But you will be safe now. You and all the others. That is what matters. Will it hurt? The girl asked. Nari thought about lying. Decided the child deserved truth. For a moment. But then it will be over. And you will be safe. The girl nodded like she understood. Like she had seen too much death already to be surprised by more. She hugged Nari quickly, then ran to the shuttle. When the last civilian was gone, the homebound's remaining crew sealed the airlocks. 23 people who had chosen to stay, chosen to die so that others could live. They diverted all power to the engines and the fusion core. Warning alarms screamed through the ship. The core temperature climbed past safe levels, past emergency levels, into ranges that should cause immediate meltdown. Taeyang watched the readings with professional interest. We have maybe 3 minutes before the core goes critical. After that, the explosion will be visible from 3 star systems away. Then we make these 3 minutes count, Nari said. She took the pilot's controls herself. All crew secure for collision. This is going to be rough. The homebound accelerated toward the harvester. The massive silence vessel detected the threat and shifted its focus. Tentacles reached out, trying to intercept the incoming ship. But Nari flew with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. She avoided the tentacles by centimeters, threading through gaps that should not have been possible to navigate. The homebound was falling apart around them. Hull plates shaking loose, systems failing. But it kept moving. In the command center of Morrow Station, everyone watched in silence. Jiwoo's hands covered her mouth. Dee had stopped breathing. Even Captain Hyun, who had seen combat for 3 decades, looked like he might cry. The homebound was 5 kilometers from the harvester. 3 kilometers. 1. Over the open channel, they heard the human crew singing. It was in their old language, the words not translating properly, but the emotion came through. It was a war song, a death song, a song of defiance. Captain Nari's voice rose above the others, clear and strong. Earth remembers. Tell them, when this is over, tell them Earth remembers. Tell them we never stopped fighting. Tell them we never gave up. The homebound struck the harvester's core. For 1 perfect second, nothing happened. The universe held its breath. Then the fusion core detonated. The explosion was beyond anything they had prepared for. Light brighter than the system's star. A shockwave that rocked Morrow Station even at a distance of 200 kilometers. The harvester simply ceased to exist. Erased by the same kind of destructive force it had used on so many others. The remaining collector vessels froze. For 5 seconds they hung motionless in space. Then, as if controlled by a single mind that had suddenly lost its purpose, they turned and fled. Their FTL drives activated and they jumped away, disappearing into deep space. The battle was over. Silence fell over the communication channels. Everyone was too stunned to speak. They had won. Somehow, impossibly, they had won. But the cost made Jiwoo's heart break. 23 humans had died, heroes whose names she did not even know. People who had survived 20 years of horror, only to sacrifice themselves for strangers. Captain Hyun's voice was rough when he finally spoke. All ships cease combat operations. Begin search and rescue for survivors. And someone get me a channel to Concord Command. They need to know what happened here. They need to know what is coming. In the wreckage of the battle. 3 days after the battle, Captain Hyun stood in front of a communication terminal preparing to send the most important report of his career. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. What he was about to do would change everything. The report was complete. Every detail documented. The arrival of the homebound. The appearance of the silence. The battle. The sacrifice of 23 humans who died saving 40,000 Concord citizens. He expected arrest. Court-martial. Possibly execution for aiding humanity without authorization. Instead, when the reply came from Concord Command, it surprised him completely. Captain Hyun, your actions are noted and commended. You are ordered to escort the surviving human refugees to Quarantine Station Kepler 7, where their request for asylum will be processed. Concord Council will convene an emergency session to discuss the silence threat. Well done, Captain. Commended. Not arrested. Commended. Ji-woo, standing beside him, let out a breath she had been holding for 3 days. They believed us. They had no choice, Hyun said. The evidence is overwhelming. And now the Concord knows there is something worse than humans out there, something that hunts and kills without mercy. On Morrow Station, the human refugees were preparing for transfer, 824 people who had lost everything but survived. They moved through the station quietly, still adjusting to being safe for the first time in 8 months. The children were different now. They still did not play loudly or run wildly like other species' children, but they smiled sometimes. They laughed quietly. The 6-year-old girl who had hugged Captain Nari drew pictures with crayons provided by station workers. The pictures showed ships and stars and families. Hope Administrator Yuna walked through the refugee sections observing. Her station had taken damage during the battle. 14 dead from that first terrible beam. Sections dissolved by the harvester. But they had survived. 40,000 people were alive because humans had been willing to die for them. She found Junho in the engineering bay, working on repairs with some of the human engineers. They were laughing about something, these people from different worlds who should have been enemies. How are the repairs coming? Yuna asked. Junho gestured to a damaged power conduit. This human, Taeyang's apprentice, showed me a technique for welding dissimilar metals that should not work according to our engineering standards. But it does work. Humans have this way of ignoring what is impossible and just making things work anyway. Is that admiration I hear in your voice? Yuna asked with a slight smile. Maybe, Junho admitted. They are strange, violent, reckless, but also brave, creative, determined. I think I understand now why the Concorde was so afraid of them. They do not give up. Ever. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the station, Ji-woo sat with Minho. They were supposed to be calibrating sensors, but mostly they were just talking. The genetic fear was still there. Ji-woo could still feel her grandmother's terror in her blood. But now there was something else too, understanding, respect. What will you do now? She asked him. When you get to the quarantine station? Minho shrugged. Wait. Hope the Concorde decides we are not dangerous enough to execute. Try to build some kind of life. It is more than we had yesterday. Do you think there are other humans out there? Other survivors? I hope so, Minho said. Before the silence found us, there were 13 colonies. We were in contact with 4 of them. If they are still alive, if they survived, maybe someday we will find them again, or maybe we are all that is left. Either way, we keep going. That is what humans do. He looked at his hands, at the missing fingers. Captain Nari used to say that humans are like weeds. You can burn us, poison us, tear us out by the roots, but we always grow back. As long as one of us survives, humanity survives, and we refuse to go extinct quietly. Ji-woo found herself smiling despite everything. I think the Concorde is going to have to get used to having humans around again. Do you think your people can do that? Get used to us? I do not know, Ji-woo admitted. But I think we have to try, because if the silence is out there hunting, we are going to need all the help we can get, even from scary humans who refuse to give up. Far across the galaxy, in a secure meeting chamber on the conquered capital world, the council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 43 species gathered to watch Captain Hyun's report and the battle footage. When the video of the homebound sacrifice played, the chamber fell silent. These were politicians and diplomats who had spent careers debating and compromising. Most had never seen real combat. Now they watched 23 people choose to die for strangers. The Velnari counselor, an ancient female named Sora, spoke first. 300 years ago, we drove humanity into the dark because we feared what they might become. We created this situation. Perhaps it is time we took responsibility for it. The Quillen representative disagreed. They are still dangerous. Did you see how quickly they killed those pirate ships? What happens when they are no longer grateful for our help? When they remember how we treated them? What happens when the silence reaches our core worlds? Sora countered. Can your species fight something that adapts to every weapon we use? Can any of us? We need allies who know how to fight impossible battles. Humans have 20 years of experience fighting the silence. They have survived what would have destroyed us. The debate continued for hours. Finally, they voted. The result was narrow but decisive. Humanity would be offered asylum. Limited at first, carefully controlled, but the 300-year exile was over. Humans could come home to known space, and the conquered would send a message to the deep dark to any remaining human colonies, with an offer of alliance against the silence. The message was crafted carefully by diplomats and linguists. It was broadcast on all frequencies in all human languages, repeating endlessly. To any human survivors, the Galactic Concord acknowledges our past mistakes. We recognize your sacrifice at Morrow Colony. We face a common enemy in the silence. If you receive this message, we request diplomatic contact. We need your help. The galaxy needs defenders who refuse to give up. Come home. We are listening. No one knew if anyone would receive it. The deep dark was vast and empty. Human colonies, if any remained, were scattered across hundreds of light years. But 3 months later, a response came. It was brief. Just a few words in old human language. We hear you. We remember Earth, we remember what you did. But we also remember what humans are capable of. We are coming. But we are coming on our terms. Prepare yourselves. The message included coordinates for a meeting place in neutral space. And a warning. There are 7 human colonies still surviving. We number 47,000. We have been fighting the silence for 20 years. We are not the same species you exiled. We are harder now, meaner, but we are also still human. We still protect those weaker than us. We still believe in hope. Let us see if you deserve our help. 6 months after the Battle of Morrow Colony, Jiwoo stood on quarantine station Kepler 7 as liaison officer for the human refugees. It had been a strange 6 months. The humans were adapting to safety slowly, like people learning to walk again after years of running. The children played now, real playing. They still had nightmares and still flinched at sudden movements, but they were healing. The adults were harder to read. They smiled, but their eyes stayed watchful. They made friends with station personnel, but always kept weapons close. Minho had been fitted with a full prosthetic hand, courtesy of Concord medical technology. He flexed the new fingers, still getting used to them. This is amazing. Our medical equipment was barely functional. We were treating injuries with salvage supplies and hope. You are safe now, Jiwoo said. You do not have to fight anymore. Minho looked at her seriously. We will always be fighting. That is what humans do. But maybe now we can choose what we fight for instead of just fighting to survive. That is worth something. In the distance, construction crews worked on a new ship. It was a joint project. Human engineering combined with Concord technology. The design included weapons that could adapt as quickly as the silence adapted. Armor that could regenerate. Systems that could function at unsafe levels when needed. The ship had a name painted on its hull in both human script and Concord standard. Unity's Defiance. It was not a warship. Not exactly. It was designed for exploration and defense. A ship that could venture into the deep dark and find human colonies. A ship that could stand against the silence. And it would be crewed by both humans and Concord species working together. Captain Hyun had been assigned as its commander, with Captain Nari's second officer, a scarred human woman named Isul, as his executive officer. The crew would be mixed. Humans who knew how to fight impossible battles. Concord species who brought technology and resources. Jiwoo had volunteered to serve as sensor officer. When Hyun asked her why, she had answered simply, because someone needs to bridge the gap between our species. Someone who understands both the fear and the need to overcome it. That is me now. Dae had volunteered as well. So had Hana and Yoonji and Junho and dozens of others who had fought at Morrow Colony. They had seen what humans could do. They had seen what the silence could do. They knew the galaxy needed defenders on the day Unity's Defiance launched. The human refugees gathered to watch. 824 people who represented,